Hi guys, this is Investing with JYK and my name is Yao Kai. Today we'll talk about mortgages. So if you search for mortgage payoff, the first thing that comes up here is this Dave Ramsey video, and it's talking about how to pay it off quickly. And Dave Ramsey, I think he argues you should get a 15-year mortgage as short as possible, as low interest as possible, and pay it off as soon as possible. Basically, that's what he argues for. And most of these are just talking about how to pay it off really quickly, right? And then here's one that says, don't pay it off too early because you want to be smart, smarter than the bank. And it says, oh, pay it off, pay it off, pay it off, pay it off. Okay, so let's first check at this Dave Ramsey video. So Dave Ramsey video got 2K upvotes and 200 downvotes. That's the how to pay off mortgage quickly. And then you got the drawbridge, how to be smarter than the bank, don't pay it off early. And you can see the like to dislike ratio suddenly got worse, right? And then it's actually a theme. So if you look at this guy here, right? So also a high like to dislike ratio. And so I'm gonna give you my take on why that's the why one is better than the other and under what circumstances. So let's first put down some numbers so we can have a solid foundation to start the argument. Assuming the mortgage value is $200,000, so that's not the property value, just the mortgage value, and then your you can contribute $1,200 post-tax to housing and potentially investment. If there's anything left over, you invest that. And then we assume the mortgage rate is 4%, so that's fairly accurate as of December 2017. And then the marginal tax rate 30%. That's fairly reasonable if you're talking about like American household income around 60, 70K. And then assume a fairly modest 5% post-tax investment return annually. Right. So one thing is this is the marginal tax rate, not the effective tax rate. The reason being, if you get a mortgage interest deduction, it comes off from the highest tax bracket. So you care about the marginal tax rate. And here are some derived values from it. The monthly interest rate is very easily just mortgage interest rate divided by 12. And then after tax monthly interest rate is just basically this number multiplied by 1 minus the marginal tax rate. Effective APR is interesting because when you apply for a loan, typically they quote you a interest rate and an APR. All right, so the APR is 1 plus the monthly interest rate to the power of 12. But the mortgage interest to the power of 12 minus 1. And then the mortgage interest rate is just a multiplicative, so that's just multiplied by 12. And that means effective APR is always slightly higher because this one has compounding in it, this one does not. And the after-tax interest rate is basically this number times the it's just for reference, right? So this number times 1 minus the tax rate. The monthly investment return essentially is 1 plus the post-tax investment return to the 12th root minus 1. And this is basically the opposite of this. So if you do 1 plus 0.0041, right, to the power of 12, you get 1.5. This one is rounded, but Right, so if you actually look at this, it's slightly rounded. And the monthly payment is following a formula. So I follow the formula. The formula depends on the mortgage value, the loan value, and the monthly interest rate, and then the loan term. The loan term in this case is 360 for a 30-year mortgage. Okay, so let's look at the minimum payment case. So in the minimum payment, every month you pay out of pocket to the mortgage, the bank, this amount of money. Right? That's what they tell you, so you can't really change that. So we just stick to it. And the way we compute, you first have to compute interest, right? So you first pay them interest, then you pay the principal. The interest is basically the balance, the previous month balance, multiplied by the monthly interest rate. And that's this number, and then you subtract the interest from the payment, you are left with principal, and then if you subtract the previous month of balance by the principal, you get this month end balance. And one thing that's important is because the interest is tax deductible, and so we don't want to mix up pre-tax money and post-tax money, so we'll compute the effective post-tax interest payment. So that's just this interest times 1 minus the tax rate, the marginal tax rate. And subsequently, we'll arrive a post-tax monthly payment, so the equivalent of post-tax payment, because this payment actually has both pre-tax and post-tax money in it. And in this case, it comes out to 700 something. So you got essentially like $200 of tax back from it, which makes sense because the 660 something, multiplied by 0.7, you get this number. And you will observe that the payment obviously doesn't change. The principal slowly creeps up because as you pay off more and more balance, the interest actually reduces. So your principal goes up, and therefore the post-tax equivalent actually goes up because more of the payment is now post-tax money. So you don't get to subtract the tax benefit. So by the end of it, by the end of it, these two numbers are almost equivalent. They're off by like $1 basically. Right, so that should make sense to you. Okay, so we will have some money left over. So since we said we're going to allocate $1,200 to this this endeavor, right, investing and paying off mortgage. So this is the difference. And then each month, obviously, the difference decreases a little bit because as the post-tax equivalence increases. And here is the cumulative invested asset. So we are assuming we get a 5%. So the way you compute this is by first you get the previous month end balance, multiply that by 1 plus the monthly gain, which is assumed to be, in this case, 0.41%. So every month you get 0.41%. And then you plus the difference of this year. Obviously here there's nothing, in the previous month, those will be equal. But this one, you can see this is not equal to these two numbers added up because you actually get paid 0.41%, right? 445. 5.17 plus 444.88 is 890.05, and this is 891.86. So you keep doing that, and by the end of your mortgage, you would have a fully paid off house and 351,000 something dollars, 356, so 16,000 ish. I'm rounding to the nearest thousand. Right, so that seems not bad. So let's look at the maximum payment. So if I apply the entire $1,200 post-tax towards my mortgage. Now, obviously, you expect this to pay off faster. So, right, so this doesn't change. It's the pre-tax interest is your balance multiplied by pre-tax monthly interest rate, and then this is the same thing here. The post-tax equivalent in interest, and then you just subtract this number from your monthly post-tax pay. That's your principal. That's the amount of principal you can afford to pay off every month. And you can see this actually, your principal is much higher compared to this one. So if you go to the top, you see the principal in this case is like $280. In this case is $700, and then immediately you'll be able to see, even in the second month, the interest payment starts to differ. This one's 664, this one's 665. So you actually already save $1, right? So you keep doing this. Obviously, you have nothing to invest, so your entire investing account, assuming 5%, is going to be 0. There's no principal, so you keep paying, and then by 2035, you already paid off your entire balance. But if you go to this guy, by the time you pay it off, it's actually 2047. So you pay it off a lot earlier, and then you start accumulating that $1,200 towards your investment, and you just get the full $1,200 applied to the investment, and that will also grow at 5%. So there's no payment. You keep growing, and in the end, you see this is actually lower. In fact, quite a bit lower, 245 versus 316. So you're looking at a $70,000 difference in terms of the end value of your investments. You both got a house, but in one case you get quite a bit more. In this case, it's what, 315,784.98 minus 244,602.23. Yeah, you got a 71,000 difference. In fact, if this is a full 30% more than if you applied all the funds towards the mortgage payment. So that seems kind of counterintuitive, because you paid off the mortgage so much faster, you paid so much less cumulative interest, right? Because you can see how much you actually paid in interest. In this case, it's $76,000, 500 something in interest payment. But in the minimum payment case, you paid $143,739. So it's almost double your interest payment, and yet you end up with more money. But this makes sense because your mortgage interest rate, actually the more important value is the post-tax mortgage interest rate, is much lower than your post-tax investment return. A 5% and 2.8%, you actually get a 2.2% difference annually in the amount of money that you did not pay back to the bank. And so if you actually change these numbers, you would see that if you change this to 2.8%, right, they should be very similar, but the minimum payment is probably still going to come out slightly ahead. Right, so you got 21 here, and then in this 211, and this guy 212. Oh, it's slightly higher in the minimum, the maximum case, but the point is the same, that the outsized return comes just because there's an interest difference. You are basically borrowing money at a cheaper rate and investing it at a higher rate. So even if you end up paying more in interest, you end up coming out ahead because of the rate difference. Now, personally, what I did is I took a cash out refinance as my house price increased, and it was very low. It was like 3.5%. it was 3.5% interest rate. And yeah, I think my post-tax return, I think I should be able to get like 6% or even more, right? But my marginal tax rate is even higher, which helps me even more because the effective interest rate is actually lower. So in my case, I think my wife and I is probably close to like 40% or more marginal tax rate. Right. So if you do this, and then you look at those numbers, it probably should be quite a bit different. So 457, and here is 296. You can see it's huge difference. It's almost 50% more, right? This thing minus 50% of that is 150. Say this is 300K plus that, you're at 450. Right? So this is a huge difference. So in my case, what I would like, obviously, is for the mortgage interest rate to never go up and keep refinancing it over and over again, never pay it off. That just means I just end up with the mortgage, the amount that I have in hand to keep investing at a quite a bit higher interest rate. So I'm effectively earning 3.9% on the difference, on the mortgage that I hold. And yeah, so that is my take on mortgage. Obviously, the whole thing changes if your mortgage rate is 14%, unless you can. If this thing is at 14%, first of all, right, first of all, your monthly payment is much higher, so this will no longer work. So let's say it's 300, 200, right? And if you do that, and your post-tax return does not keep up with your after-tax return, right? You end up getting a lot less money, right? So let's say in the minimum payment is $1 million because I actually increased the 6%, and then it's 2,500. I get a little bit more to pay. And in this case, is the maximum payment comes out ahead. You can see that. So everything actually just depends on the difference between the post-tax investment return and after-tax interest rate, or even better, after-tax APR. But okay, so that is all I have for today, and let me know what you guys think. And if you like it, please click thumbs up. If you don't like it, please thumbs down. And if you would like to have more content, please subscribe. And the next video will be on the risks involved in the uranium market, as well as some individual companies analysis.